Good morning.
Hello, Peter. How are you?
Good.
Good. I know that Mark is not joining us today. He's going for some sort of a holiday drive.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, should be. I think he's going up north to see family or something. So hang on, just doing a thing. I'm trying to work on my dissertation today, and it's really hard. But there we go. I'll just have to put it on a safe space here. Okay, cool. So how are you?
Pretty good. Still working on that IMBO website redesign from hell, but eventually I'll get done with it. I set it up now so that I can detect all the different modifier key combinations that might be pressed, so that I'll be able to use that to adjust user interactions in the visualization software down the road. So that was a lot of plumbing work to figure that out, but it's working now and I can move on to the next stage.
And what's the next stage?
The next stage is the core page layout and then plugging all the different existing modules in. Then I wire in the data feed from WordPress to actually bring the content into the site.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Also, I wrote a script that will let me extract the link database from a Tinderbox file so that I can use Tinderbox to build really rich web networks and pull them into the website too. So I won't be dependent entirely. WordPress will basically be the blog feed, but I'll use Tinderbox for the data analysis and real substantive hypertext authoring feed. And we'll be able to extract the link database now. So I'll be able to have all of the inbound links, inbound text links, outbound text links, and all the nice fine-grained tools that Tinderbox gives me that WordPress couldn't possibly handle.
And Brendan, you joined us half a second before Daniel, who is new, introduced by Alan, who is not here, as is often the case. But yeah, we're a bit short today, a couple of holidays and things going on. I know Mark won't be here. But Daniel, first of all, welcome. Secondly of all, this is recorded. And thirdly of all, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Daniel Norman. I am currently the CTO of a company called Edvo. We are an EdTech and PLM sort of affair. We're in the process of working on a beta piece of software releasing early next year. I've been really fascinated with what I would title sense making, or the sort of personal extension or sort of there's a term that I'm trying to remember.
Tools for thought, maybe.
Tools for thought. Thank you. And it's something that's really fascinating to me. I have some positions about it that I would love to get into at some point with folks.
Do you want to tell us more about what your software does, maybe, for context?
Yeah, it is currently a personal graph that allows for text annotation and definition of abstract topics and the relation of those topics. We're moving towards that being an interpersonal graph with real-time collaborative functionality and so on. But I have my personal interest is more broadly looking at how we can build not just products, but communities and protocols and improve group sense making as a whole. I take great inspiration. I don't know if you're familiar with some of Daniel Schmachtenberger's writings. I take great inspiration from his thoughts on the sort of social impacts of different sense making regimes.
I don't know that name. Could you please type his name into the chat so we can, it sounds like
Sure.
it'd be a challenge to spell just from,
Yeah, I just tried it and I'm not familiar either. But pleasure to meet you, Daniel. We have similar interests and alignment, so I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
that's a good transition. Maybe Brendan, you want to do a few words of who you are to Daniel, and also maybe there's an update for the rest of us.
Yeah, sure. For starters, I have a short session in me today. I have to get to the doctor at the top of the hour, so I'll be here for only about 25, 30 minutes. But little background, Daniel, for you specifically, I'm in the midst of working on a research project around collective sense making and how the process of individual synthesis turns into collective synthesis. So how we break down very complex problems, understand them, create something new from it. And we are in the midst of a lot of interviews with researchers and builders of tools for thought on how they've actually gotten to the point that says, hey, we're going to create this for you to afford these things. And then talking to people who are in the field, who are doing their doctoral programs or independent research, and finding kind of their individual processes, what it might look like to look inside their personal graph, how they put things together. So we're actually, in terms of the update, we are about a month, maybe a little more than a month out of publicly publishing our notebook. It's kind of a shared network notebook that will have all the thoughts in here. So quite exciting times, doing a lot of the interview process right now, and actually going to be talking to Mark Anderson next week. So about a lot of his work with Tinderbox and during his time at Southampton. So yeah, cool things all around, but that's a little bit of background on me. Before I jumped into this realm, I also worked at an ed tech company. I led product design and development for a company called Capsim. We kind of made two primary tools. One was a set of business simulations, think games where you run a company and have to kind of decipher different market forces and how to compete in a shared environment. And then the kind of crowning achievement, that one of the things that I really held near and dear to me, was creating an email-based simulation that was kind of a day in the life type experience. And we extended that capability for anyone in the field to kind of author their own stories that could turn into these email simulation games. And so that was the last bit of work that I did there before I moved on. But yeah, so some funny crossovers in our world.
I know, just as an aside, I know you used the term sense making. Is that something that you had previously used?
How do you mean previously?
Are
Like before I joined the project?
Do you find yourself already familiar with that term, with that nomenclature?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was kind of this research project that I joined had the foundations of this, and getting to see kind of the prior research and the art around other sense-making tools and what people are creating has been much of the last several months. So yeah.
I have to admit, I don't like that term at all.
Sense-making?
Well, it's a bit, it's like, hey, we've got to make sense of this. Let's make a tool called sense making. It's kind of almost like a backronym or a,
yeah.
Tools for thought is already stretching the point, but Howard Rheingold used that back in the 90s. So at least it has a bit of age to it. By the way, Daniel, in text here, I just put my email address. If you email me, I'll be very happy to include you on the email going out about the information for the symposium. We have symposium every year. Next Friday will be the 10th annual symposium on the future of text. So it's exactly like this, just a bit bigger, more people, and a couple of presentations.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, good timing. Adam, I can't see you. I don't know if I can hear you, but Daniel has just joined us and Peter is about to introduce himself. Are you ready to introduce yourself after, or are you still suffering with kids and cold?
Yeah, I'm still suffering with the kids and a new cold, but the kids will be with me for 50 years.
Yes. No, that's not exactly suffering. That's how I meant to put it. But Peter, a lawyer from New York and Syracuse alumni, would you like to introduce yourself?
Okay, my formal academic training is in law. I went to Syracuse University College of Law in the Law Technology Management program, which allowed me to work with their iSchool and their Innovation Management program in their business school. After I got out, I discovered that I was more interested in the underlying intellectual property than the intellectual property law. So I set up a 501c3 nonprofit called the Institute for End User Computing that we ran for a little over a decade before funding dried up and that expired. Since then, my research interests has shifted into foresight and futures studies and primarily university futures. My current initiative is called Founders Quadrangle, and I'm trying to create an online community and shared space to explore the full design space for universities of the future with an eye to eventually founding a new university down the road. So Founders Quadrangle would be the place to explore all of the issues related to new universities, what different directions they could go in, purposes, curriculum options, campus planning, design, architecture, anything related to that design space to try to map out possible exemplars. Hang on a second, I have probably another sales call coming in. I will be back in a second.
Okay.
That's a landline call too.
Yeah.
That's nice.
I was trying not to highlight that fact. Okay, Adam, while Peter's dealing with pots, not pots and pans, but anyway, are you coming on video or not today?
No, my video camera connected to the computer is away for business.
Fair enough. So please introduce yourself, otherwise I will. Haha.
I have so many different interests, but computing. I have a business degree, but I don't talk about it because it's in the other circles among technologists and theater people. It's not a good thing to have a master's in business, so I usually keep quiet about that. But here I'm very interested in text and especially I have a very big interest in interfaces and how we work with text, because I think there are so many conventions that we just take for granted when it comes to text and symbols, and there are so many things unexplored or that I really want to explore together with other people, and that's why I'm here.
Okay, and I'm back. Once you hit 55, you start getting peppered with life insurance sales calls. And I always tell them, I make it a point not to be worth more dead than alive. But continuing with the previous thread, I'm interested in founding a new university down the road, and that interest has sort of broadened a little bit and expanded to look at cities of the future, World's Fairs, techno cities, projects like the Minnesota Experimental City, Walt Disney's original vision of Progress City as a city, because the line between a university and a small city state really blurs if you start to think about things and look at alternate economic models. Also, a major driving theme is radical regulatory avoidance, because the minute you buy into the current regulatory system, that makes all of your design choices for you, and you wind up looking exactly like the current universities. And if you wanted to really radically rethink assessment, curriculum, enrollment selections, and things like that, you'd suddenly very quickly find yourself outside of the realm of what accreditation committees are looking for. Beautiful case in point, one of the metrics is how many books you have sitting in your library. without any reference to whether anyone's actually using those volumes. So you could have a school simply call up Amazon and say, please send me 500,000 of the cheapest books that you have to fill a warehouse. No one would be using them, but an accreditation committee would say, oh, this is wonderful. They have a huge number of books. Whereas in today's world, you could have a much smaller working library and give each student a budget to order books that actually matter to them from Amazon as they need them, and have them build up personal libraries in their dorm rooms instead of having one giant dead stack building that you can only get into during select hours. So there's so many possibilities, but in order to design them, you've got to bust out of the current regulatory framework. So I'm particularly interested in Daniel's EdTech company and Brendan's simulation work and anything related to technologies that could be used in an academic setting. On the technology side, my primary research interest is end user programming and programming language design. So I'm constantly looking to build better tools to help me build better tools. And the big theme there is literate programming, which I talk about in the next edition of The Future of Text.
So we have this symposium next week. We also published Future of Text book. We will be publishing the second edition quite soon, and you're very welcome to join us to contribute to the third edition, should be interested. By the way, has Alan or have you come across the notion of what we call visual meta? Or you're a bit muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. No, I'm not familiar with the term.
Can I give you 5 minutes on what it is? That's one of the core things here.
Visual meta, correct?
Yeah.
By all means.
Okay. A brief introduction here. So hang on, just want to make sure my buttons are working. So in order to show you visual meta, I'm going to show you two pieces of software that we've developed in the community. One is a PDF author and reader. So visual meta starts with the idea that in a book, you usually have meta on one of the first pages, which is publishing information. A PDF very often has zero meta information. Very often you can download an academic PDF and it doesn't even know when it was published. So what we've done is taken the idea of the first front page meta information and put it at the back of a document. So this is ACM doing a pilot of visual meta right now. So what they've done, they've taken the visual meta for that document, put it at the back. So I'll make it a bit more readable. It looks like it's BibTeX. Are you familiar with BibTeX?
Generally, yes.
Okay. So this bit is actual BibTeX. After the heading and all of that good stuff, there's a section that just has the BibTeX of that document, which would be the equivalent of what you would have on the download page. Inside Visual Meta, you can have all kinds of goodies after an introduction that says what it is. We have a header, of course. The self-citation is what you just saw, so that others can cite this document. We have a section on author details, because first name, last name, and international names can be a headache. This thing can also include a full list of all the references this document refers to, so it can be extracted programmatically. It can have all the document headings, which is very good for doing different views down the line, glossary, endnotes, and so on. So I'll just show you a couple of things that this enables. One of them is you can copy text in such a PDF, go to a word processor and paste, and that is pasted as a full citation. It also allows for all kinds of good views when you're working, which can be then transferred onto the reading part. I'll just show you a little bit here in a second. If you want to add a heading in this environment, you have to say what level it is. You can't just do bold and large. So you add the semantic value there, and then that allows you to fold the document, for instance. This is just another style of citing an author, but this is where it gets more interesting. In this authoring environment called author, there is a concept map kind of a layout. So what that allows you to do is, well, it's connected to the main text in the document, so you can double click on it. But what it allows you to do is when you're writing, you can define, for instance, Hamilton, select it, do Command D, type in, it's a musical. Very simple example. When you then go into the map and you type Hamilton again, nothing happens. But if you click on my name, and then you'll see there's automatically aligned to Hamilton. That's because my definition includes Hamilton. It's a bit of a trivial example, but the reason I like this example is that I'm a person and I'm connected to a lot of things, but Hamilton has no idea who I am. So instead of having lots of lines on a graph that are always there and definitions, this only shows you connections when you click on something and it goes outwards. I suspect you may have a question or a comment on this one, considering your work.
Yes, I'm trying to understand, is this a desktop application? Is this a service? Is this an initiative? All of the above?
I guess I should have started with that. This presentation is actually targeted to a very specific user group, so I apologize. There's two pieces of software and an infrastructure. The software is author and reader, both for macOS. That's what my company does to show what this can be. Visual Meta is a completely open infrastructure that goes at the back of documents. So the reason for this presentation is that author natively adds Visual Meta to a document when it produces a PDF, and reader knows how to parse that information.
I see. And where is this data stored, and how is it conveyed between author and reader?
That's a very important point. And I'll show you that. I'll share the first slides in context. So what we've done is at the end of a document, it's literally written on the last page. So it's not in a data fork or anything fancy like that. We feel that you can take analog information to digital. I interviewed Dini Grieger yesterday. She's the founder of the Electronic Literature Organization. And when she looked at this, she said that taking analog to digital has been done, but what this does, it takes digital to analog and back. Because all the information that is in the Visual Meta at the end here, if it's printed and then scanned again, you have lost no metadata at all.
How does this work for text regions? Are they indicated in this format at the back of the document as well?
You're talking about text regions for citations or for what? I mean, for referencing or?
All of the above. I'm thinking of this, and I'm imagining that this is a sort of text representation of a subgraph of a broader aggregate graph consisting of multiple documents. I don't know if that's a reasonable frame.
That's an interesting question, and I look forward to others chiming in as well. But a lot of stuff goes into this, and I'm going to answer it in two ways. We have heading information in here, which is really crucial. If you work in Word or Pages and you export to PDF, even though you may have used the actual styles for heading in your document, when it goes to PDF, that metadata, structural data is lost. In this system, it notes down what the headings are and what levels they are, plus if there is a guest writer, a guest author for a section, it also adds that information. We don't currently specify different areas on the screen, but when we do citations, we can do things like knowing where it came from.
I see.
So there's some other stuff here. I'm going to skip past. So when you've done this defining of text, which is literally writing out what it is just in plain language, when you then go to reader with this PDF and it understands what's going on, you can do several things. You can fold it into an outline like I showed here. If you can do a search, you can see all the words in the document. You can click on the citation to get the reference information popped up, all of that stuff.
What fraction of this is specialized interpretation of existing PDF semantics, and what fraction of it is a sort of overlay, a series of overlay semantics based on the final pages of the document?
I can't comment on that because it's based on, I think, a different cognitive model. This is based primarily on a student learning. So in the map that you saw, that could be physics or it could be all kinds of things, obviously. But it's literally student selects a key term in the work they're learning, selects it and write, this is blah, 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 just plain English writing.
I mean, application semantics in terms of headers and collapsing and things of that nature. Is this, will this work on existing PDF documents, or do they need to be created in Writer for those heading and
okay.
collapsing and referencing semantics to work?
If it is done in Author, it is automatic. However, the first volume of The Future of Text was done in InDesign. So I manually wrote the visual meta at the end of that document, and it still works. So it's really, really important, your question, because visual meta is literally just text. It can be added in any way you like. So now I'll just show you the last bit of this slideshow, because I think this may bring a few concepts together. So when you have, the final thing I really wanted, I don't know whether my voice was there, but anyway, because of the headings, you can select text and do Command F to see all the occurrences of something. But if that is in the defined text earlier, it gets turned into a glossary. So at the top of the screen, you see the definition, right? And any other text that is referred to is bold. So you can click on that and you go further around the graph. So that means that in effect, hang on, let me just get you back so I can see you here. So that means that in effect, the defined concepts become a glossary and it stays interactive when you're reading in the PDF. Hi, Rafael. We have Daniel here today who introduced himself, and now we're going around, and I, of course, showed a little visual meta, but Peter, you have a comment?
Yes, I should also mention that we're going to be using content hashes going forward to provide an errata mechanism so that you'll be able to directly reach into a past document to correct something. And because you'll use those hashes, you'll be able to query some larger network system to be able to find any errata connected to the item that you're currently reading. And a future reader could potentially splice those corrections into the document so that you can see different versions of it. So we can address versioning and errata very nicely by making sure that you don't just have, the name of the document, which really represents a family of versions and corrections. You'll be able to reach in and directly address different variants of the document. So that's going to be a real nice feature going forward.
I like that idea applied to nonfiction materials. That way you can keep updating your material whenever new content comes out, depending, of course, on what you're going to be writing about. But I would much prefer to have an updated version of a book than having two books, one for version 1, one for version 2, and then just navigate it within the app itself to see new content and old content and errata content as well.
Yeah.
I'm particularly curious as to how passages of text are identified as either the source or target of any of these references. Is that represented in the visual metadata?
It can be. It depends how we choose to do it, because there's two parts of visual meta. One is the stuff at the end of the document. The other stuff is on the clipboard. So when you copy text from a visual meta PDF and you paste it, it has all that stuff. It also means that what we want to do is extended. So let's say let's just take Rome as an example. You select an object in Rome of whatever category, copy it, you go into an environment that supports visual meta pasting. It pastes it and it looks like normal text, but all the context, all the metadata is in the visual meta. So when it's then re-exported as a PDF, the user has the option to interact with it even bring it back fully to Rome. So the addressability on the pages is, because it's PDF, they are literally there on the pages. There are different ways to address that. We haven't felt a strong need yet.
I see. So so presumably it's using PDF native semantics for referencing, and then the portion at the end is not used for referencing, but other meta functions. Is that other metadata representation? Is that reasonable?
Yeah, but the problem is, when I started this, I'm currently doing a PhD. I'm supposed to finish next month. It's a bit stressful. I was very much of the Doug Engelbart model. He was my mentor of high resolution addressing and all of that. But then my advisor says, in academia, we do not want high resolution addressing because we want students to show that they have read the material. So that then just was way on the back burner. It's very easy to cite any other document. And we have ways of making sure that if you have the document that's cited, you can open it immediately and things like that. However, adding referencing to this bit was this part on this page. What we talked about before is, first of all, we use the logical page, and then we use the text itself, because a simple find will find the referred text if it was copied from that text, that page.
I see. And I'm candidly, I'm not familiar with Engelbart's thoughts on high resolution addressing, but I infer that that has to do with encouraging proper academic diligence, which I would contrast, if I'm interpreting that correctly, I would contrast that with the desire to organize and make durable and recall complex networks of information through a user experience. And that's something that motivates me is how to create the right recall and the right serendipities in experiences.
Yeah, that's a very interesting topic to explore. What we're trying to do with visual meta is to have it as a connecting mechanism. But the initial use case from my perspective is a single author writing a paper to a single teacher. That's real, because that covers a lot of models. The networking stuff that you're working on, serendipity, graphing, all that good stuff, is not the current focus. So I think that a discussion in that direction would be welcomed by everybody.
I see.
Adam, I'm sure you have a pile of opinions on this. If you can find the mute button.
I have to find the tab first.
Yeah, I think addressability is important still, to at least have, for my use case, for example, when I, in my system, when I import the future of the textbook, I really want the quotes to know where they came from with more precision. I don't think search is as robust as we would like to think, because one phrase can appear in several places. And especially for headings are often repeated in different subheadings in different chapters. So I think it could be, we should look more into that to get more precision in the addressability. One question that came up here with regards to PDF semantics is how, Frode, what vision do you have for the existing table of contents structures in PDF? I noticed that in the future of the textbook, there is no table of contents, a regular PDF table of contents. And to be honest, there is no author information even. You were attacking the poor Adobe guys for not including metadata, but the current printing has no metadata at all. So it's a blank field for author, it's a blank field for publisher, it's a blank field for everything. I think that information should go in there as well. So just duplicate that information So it's both in visual meta and as a regular PDF table of contents as well.
I agree with your first thing about addressability. It's an issue I'd love to dive into now. When it comes to that, your criticism, I did actually try that. When I used InDesign, which is an Adobe product, there are so many ways to export to PDF. We had one version that was to be printed on paper and one version of PDF that was to be viewed on screen, called an interactive version. To add the metadata, it was really, really complicated. I got in touch with someone in the PDF Association to find out how to do this, because I expected it would be similar to select file on the Mac desktop, do Command I to get info and then add stuff there, that kind of level. And he said, no, it's basically XMP and it's an extension called this and that, and you have to use this system to add it. Really kind of complicated. I'll probably do it for...
Which part are you referring to? The author information and title?
Yes.
Because now it's called the Future of Text .InDesign INDD or... so I think that should be something you could fill in a form for in the document properties.
Yes, but for volume 2 that we're working on now, once it's done, I'll probably open it in Acrobat and try to add it there. The first time we only used InDesign to export that. So I completely agree with you that it should be there, but it's also a question of where it's accessible. And when it comes to the table of contents, there wasn't a mechanism in InDesign that I had accessible where I could make that table of contents that was native. You know, when you open a PDF in Preview or Acrobat, in most cases, this stuff isn't there either. Yes, we should endeavor to go the extra mile to use the current Adobe tools, especially now that we have a dialogue with the PDF team at Adobe. But it does also highlight that this stuff really is hidden. You know, when you make a PDF from Word, this actually, I don't know about the author information, but the headings are not included. At least on the Mac version of Word that I have.
Yep, that's fair enough. But I think it's not that complicated in InDesign. I've done it once. I once worked at a publisher with ebook publishing, but that was a while ago, and it was a nightmare back then. So I really feel with you here. But I think it's good to reuse as much as possible of the existing PDF infrastructure. And I think many publishers actually do quite a good work of doing table of contents, at least. And many of my ebooks have headings and chapters and so on that you can navigate quickly. And I think it would be wiser to attach the additional, the good things that you invented with the authors, adding authors to specific chapters, and that kind of metadata, add that on top of the existing table of contents, so we don't, or else we'll have a system where all regular PDF readers can't really see anything. They can see even less than usual, just because we are a bit too stubborn to use our visual meta. So that would not be good.
It's not about stubborn. I just redid my subscription to Acrobat today. It's actually quite expensive. So I have Acrobat on here, so I can go in, but I will have to go in and manually say what all the different sections are. And I think an issue still stands that if you export this from Pages or Word, you don't really get this stuff. But yeah, I agree with you, Adam. We should definitely add it. Just going to look here in export from Pages. So export to PDF. Yeah, there is no, hang on. Let me just share my screen a little bit. So when you're talking about a professionally produced book, Adam, yes, I could imagine they know how to do the headings, but let's say we do format here, we do what's it? Great, the Acrobat crashed. So we'll do layout, and hang on, you guys are over. Yeah, we'll make it heading, and then we go export to here. And then we'll open this in preview this time. There's nothing here. And then let's say do information about the document.
But I'm not really sure what this pages and even Word, but I imagine that there is some way of getting Word to export it, but most books and papers are not made in pages, so it's not that relevant for the discussion. This is more for the future of the textbook, and also more widely to have an approach where we actually use the regular table of contents and in PDFs and extend it with our custom information, instead of doing a completely separate system and pretend that the regular table of contents isn't there. Because I really agree with the Adobe guys in many of the things that many of the facilities are there, but not used. So that is.
Look at this. This is from ACM. It's a recent paper. Save it on the desktop, right? And open this. First of all, obviously I do get info, nothing here. But if we now open it in, let's start with preview. It also has, right, it also has no headings. This is from ACM. This is professionally produced. It also doesn't have any author information.
So, but what is the critique here? That they, so I don't really get the critique here. They haven't used InDesign or their system properly to do a table of contents, and they have it's a
Mine should be there in the ACM product, so that it'll be foldable and fully usable, like one of our documents would be.
What I'm saying is that even ACM, with their sophisticated production, do not have the capability to do what you're saying, which I find is quite scary. I'm now in Acrobat, and I've opened this. I'm trying to even find where to see the headings. It's been a while since I've been experimenting here, but it doesn't seem to have it either. Nor does it have the information about who published it. Right, it has thumbnails, but it doesn't have so yeah, I'll try to do that, but that does require quite a bit of an effort, which is fair enough for you to expect of me as the publisher of our book. But I still think that it shows that the things that are existing for metadata for PDF are so hidden that Microsoft doesn't use it, Apple doesn't use it, and ACM doesn't use it. I think that's why it is important that we should make it really, really easy to add it in a way that both human and machine can create and access in the document.
But it won't be automatically. I really agree with you that it should be easier, and I agree with you that it isn't there for many of the published products, exports by consumer programs or even professionally produced things by some publishers. But many other publishers, if you go to any O'Reilly book, you see a good table of contents, and there are many publishers that uses the table of contents for regular longer books made by bigger organizations with the money to have a full system for it. But what I'm saying that it doesn't mean that visual meta that it will be easier to add visual meta in any way, because they need a process and tooling for that as well. And So it's more a human thing that you need to spend money to actually go through all the headings and mark them up in the proper way so it gets exported like you do with.
But Adam,
Yep.
Their old neighbor Swede, I don't know, I'm Norwegian guy, so I'm not sure where you're heading with this, because we have Daniel here and we're kind of going, who is new, we're kind of going into an old rabbit hole. And first of all, if someone wants to use what exists, more power to them. I'm not sending out an army to put guns to the head of people and say, do not add metadata to Adobe products. I'm not doing that. If they already did that, visual meta probably would not exist. What I am saying is that it's scary that it's not done. And I don't think that just advocating that everybody should be doing like a large, rich publisher. What I am saying is that we should look at alternatives, and visual meta is just one alternative, and it's just an approach for doing basic stuff. I mean, the visual meta we've added to the ACM documents in the pilot they're running for us is basically just the bibliography BibTeX to cite that document. Doesn't have any heading information, no addressability information, none of the good stuff that we've discussed on this forum for a long time. So yes, if I have the time, I will go through and try to use Acrobat to slowly piece together where every heading is in the document. It's going to take me a day or two. And in the middle of my, basically I have to do my PhD dissertation by the end of the 29th. If I can do it, I can. But the fact that I'm struggling to do it, the fact that the tools don't really allow it, if I could export it from Word or whatever, that would be nice. But we are, we're talking about different workflows. There's one workflow from a large publisher, one for a small one, and one for a student. They are different things.
Which program are you producing the book now this time? Will it go through InDesign at some point, or go author to?
It's just exported from author.
Okay, but because in InDesign it would be easier to do it because the facilities are there, and I've used them myself at a small publisher. So it's not, you need to tag the headings, for example, and check that box for the export, but it's not that complicated, but it's still, yeah.
What we did, I just gave you all the link to the preview of the book as it is now in chat. The reason I don't want to do InDesign is because I think it's complete and utter shit. And the reason for that, I'm an Adobe guy. I've been using Photoshop since version 2. For instance, trying to do this as a small publisher where I'm the only person working on this, for book number 1, to do proofreading was hell, because you cannot do proofing in InDesign. First of all, a lot of proofreaders don't have InDesign. It's expensive to rent. Secondly, it doesn't do basic highlighting of typos and things like that. So everything had to go back out, go into Word, check it that way, and put it back. So when it comes to doing, you could call the book, I guess, a fanzine. We're not selling it. We're not making any money. It is, it is a production process. So with author, the cover is done, the table of contents is done, visual meta is done, formatting is done. All of that is completely, utterly taken care of because we spent years programming it to do that. Should we also try to have it produce a PDF headings and author information? Probably, but that would be a different expense, and that would be kind of for a different market.
Yeah. So, but if you're doing it through author, then it's not really. Then we have to do it the author way. I thought you were pushing it through InDesign as you did last time, and then I could have helped you with that finishing touches too. But I see that it's not.
Hang on, like a second. Daniel, are you familiar with our book effort?
I'm not.
This is the first edition of the book. That's the size of the book. These are the amount of contributors.
Oh, awesome.
And, it is a hefty tome. There's a lot of stuff in here. And even to to do this kind of stuff you're talking about now, Adam, is it is a bit of an undertaking, but we'll look at how we can do it via Acrobat.
Yeah, at least we should get the author information in there. So when I import it into my system, it doesn't say dot in the something cryptic, because that would be nice for other readers.
Yeah, we can look at that. It will take a while to figure it out, but I'm sure we can.
And I must admit that I'm unfamiliar with a lot of these details, and I imagine that there are different considerations that you're looking at. I'm a little bit curious if there's any time today to understand some of this sort of longer term vision, things of that nature, articulable vision, mission. How is text defined? To what extent does that extend into semiotics, ontology, etc.? So I just would like to highlight those as possible topics if there's time or interest.
Yeah, hang on, let me just show you guys something here. So just for relevance to this conversation. So in Acrobat, when you do Command D for document properties, there is additional metadata here where we can add author, except this document doesn't have an author, it has an editor. So at least we can add the title. But it isn't, yeah, it's a bit weird. Anyway, Adam, we can go on and on about that at a different time. When it comes to the questions you raised, could you please repeat them, Daniel?
Sure. And I've taken the liberty of, just as an aside, sharing a screenshot of Edvo's beta product to give you an idea of just the tip of the iceberg of the kind of thing that I'm thinking about. But my question is, what is the articulable vision and mission of the Future of Text group? I will add one more question, which is, how exactly is text defined? I think that there are multiple interpretations of text, and I'm curious to understand the thinking behind that. You're muted.
In terms of the first part of that question, the group is twofold. One thing we're trying to do is truly augment how we interact with text to learn and think and communicate. That's the kind of, let's get shit done. I mean, right now we have the ending of the climate change summit, and the fact that they're dealing with dumb documents, I think, is absolutely scary, really, really scary. So that's half of it. The other half is expanding into whatever area. I curate people, not articles. So there are artists and people in the book that, you know, some people hate the idea of digital text. Fantastic, write a piece on that. Some people have all kinds of weird perspectives. It doesn't matter. As far as the definition of text is concerned, it's basically a bit like, you know, porn. You know it when you see it. It is based on, no, I don't think that a video is necessarily better. No, I don't think that VR, by, you know, making it look like you're in the world, will be better. I think that all of those things are worthwhile, but we have spent 5,000 years developing this symbolic way of communicating that has great potential, great power. So a lot of it is orthography. It is about text, but of course, combined with other media and displayed and interacted with in different ways. Adam, Peter, Raphael, any additions or comments on that?
Yes, I think besides that point that has to do a lot with technology and things related to, you know, the underlying structure of text, I also like to see text as the other representations. So that can go into either calligraphy or poems or writing or all of that universe as well. and how those things are also evolving. So even regular printed books, the future of regular printed books, has a lot to do with text. The future of ebooks as well has a lot to do with text. So I like to think in those terms as well as how we consume text and how those things are changing.
And I don't know if this would be valuable as a future discussion point, but I would like to offer a perspective on a possible definition, at least one that I prefer, which I would describe as a sort of the boundary and process of lifting information, which is where the semantics are external to the reader, the interpreter, or whatever, and are through interpretation and through whether that be reading or parsing or whatever, that the sort of input symbols are lifted and interpreted and symbolized. That it starts out as this unintelligible stuff that's just data, that's just symbols on a page, that's just bits in a computer, and then lifted through interpretation to the formulation of these abstract symbols. I don't know if that's a useful interpretation, but it's one that's meaningful to me.
It's not meaningful to me at all, which is great. I will have to spend some time reflecting on that.
I like it. I like it. It's very meaningful to me. And I'm also always thinking about text, not just for the human reader, but also for automation systems to be able to consume it. And when I think about code, I don't think about it merely as being directives to drive an automation system. I also think of it primarily as communication between programmers who are trying to exchange solutions between one another. So I'm trying to get my mental model into your head. I'm using code to do it, but code as text, as opposed to just throwing down any old abstract chain of symbols that will produce the desired outcome.
Mm-hmm. And through whatever mechanism and for whatever purpose, I'm as an example, I'm thinking of Ian Nell's codex and how there are these sorts of sections of text that are being identified and turned into entities in their own right, and those entities overlap each other and so on. And that relationships, whether they're actually explicitly documented in a system or whether they're purely in the mind of the reader, that these relationships are formed.
Could you drop a link to that in the chat?
Oh, sure.
I feel like Daniel's explanation is within the realms of semiotics, like exploring more related to language communication, science, symbols, and all those things. And I guess what I would just comment as a small counterpoint would be not the simplification, but the general usage of text in daily life, right? Not so much as doing such a deep dive in the theory of linguistics, communications, and language. I think it has a more practical application from my point of view, based on the things we've been talking. And well, not the future of text. The book has a lot of a lot of possibilities of people's thoughts on the future of text. But the discussions we've been having in the office hours tend to be more of bringing things down to earth and how can we apply it in different either tools or contexts.
I see. Thank you.
So today we need to finish relatively hard on the hour. Next week, Friday, of course, it'll be 2 hours on the symposium, and then sometime on Saturday. But the thing is, Daniel, these discussions go in all kinds of directions, basically depending on who is on the call. I've had very, very good support from these guys on helping make visual meta something useful, but it is only one thing, one approach. I do think we need approaches for how people can freely move their knowledge about. Knowledge silos are not very good ideas. I opened up your screenshot, which is very, very fascinating. Would you like to talk us a little bit through it?
Sure. And I've also taken the liberty of sharing a blog posting that gives a little bit of a window into my thought process, if anyone's curious. So the screenshot that I shared was just the beta Edvo product, which allows for, it has a browser extension where you can highlight passages of text within web pages. You can add bulleted notes on those highlights or the page itself. Each page that you open in the extension gets recorded within your personal graph as a resource. And you can also create abstract topics. And what I've done here in this screenshot is I've created an abstract topic for this meeting that we're having right now. I've created an abstract topic for the future of text. I've tagged the two of them so that they're related in my personal graph. I've created abstract topics for each attendee and taken some kind of modest notes in each of those cases. Taken some notes on. I've created an abstract topic on visual meta and created and taken notes there. I've since extended my notes on the mission of the Future of Text group. And so I'm able to incorporate into the November 12 meeting, I'm viewing the topic space for this abstract topic, which is a two-dimensional metaphor that allows me to visualize the relationships between the November 12th meeting topic and the other topics which are pictured as members in this space, thereby allowing me to save and later reconstitute the context of this meeting, inclusive of each of those subtopics and any sort of resources. We also support PDFs modestly, but PDFs nonetheless, and bringing those in. So the goal is to make it more of a sort of whiteboarding meets personal graph and eventually interpersonal graph with real-time collaboration and so on.
That would be very interesting to learn more about. I think it's aligned with several of the projects, including Adam. Would you agree it's related to some of the work you're doing?
Yes, this was super interesting to see. It's my system is a bit more free flow, not so structured as this, and I'm very concerned with data overload. So I want to have things. So I'm super interested to see how you scope things in this system, so you can have sub-views or your at least your thoughts on it to combat the collector's fallacy thing. But this was I really liked your way of taking notes here, and I would love to see a presentation about the system at some point, because several people have been doing demos here, and we've been discussing different points and how it could integrate with other systems and so on. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
I'd be happy to share more.
On that note, let's wrap up for today. But Alan has been very pushy in a very good way, along the lines of what Raphael's been doing on the community. So we're going to create not only some sort of a newsletter, using those words very, very loosely, but also we're going to have more of themes. So for instance, Barbara Tversky will be one of the themed persons or guest speakers. I'm not even sure what we're going to call it. But next Friday, we will discuss structure. So I would really like to have a day of Daniel versus Adam, where basically, you do a demo each. Well, not versus as in, one will win or they're opposites. They're clearly not opposites, but it would be that kind of a thinking space. And Raphael, you need to decide if you feel you fit in that space as well. So let's start talking next Friday at the second half of the meeting about how to structure and how to get these things, because we record all these Monday, Friday conversations, but it's probably useful for ourselves and others if we have a little bit of a theme to them, easier to find and refer to. So welcome aboard, Daniel. Nice to see you. And when I say welcome aboard, please understand that's a very casual thing. No one other than me has to be here. I have to be here just to keep the room open, but we all come when we can, and it really varies. So don't feel that you suddenly have to be in or out. It's not like that at all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the warm welcome.
Wonderful. Have a good weekend, everyone. And
Have a good weekend, guys.
some of you on Monday and some of you on Friday. Bye.